Okay, part 2, everybody. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I think the next video is either going to be starting the big reveal in this book, or it'll start in this video. I don't know. It just depends on how long it is when I get to that point. The Fellowship Gatherings for Fear. Wait a minute, let me just make sure I turned on the stupid recording. I'm sorry. My memory's bad. The Fellowship Gatherings for Fear. The advancement ceremony was due to begin at third bell, and the atmosphere in the dormitory was electric. Lisletta and Bertilde were doing my hair, while Brunhilde and Grisha were off distributing hairpins to the new girls. You have a real talent for styling hair, Bertilde, I said. Lady Elvira said the same thing. I simply love doing it. Bertilde went on to tell me about the jobs she'd done while working for Elvira and the various things they had discussed. Her rose-pink tresses were adorned with 2 hairpins, one she had just been given as the first year, and another she had received from her parents in celebration of her enrollment at the Royal Academy. Lisletta observed us for a while, then started preparing my hair ornaments and double-checking my luggage, a clear indication that Bertilde had passed as my apprentice attendant. Lady Rosemont, she said, will Brunhilde, Matthias, and Roderick suffice as her retinue for the fellowship gathering? Indeed. I also have information from the scholars who went gathering the other day. It would seem that Klassenberg has a new Archduke candidate in attendance this year. Would you like me to remind you of her name so that you can greet her? There was a teasing smile on her face. I suspected that someone had already told me this while I was reading and that I'd completely ignored them. Of course! That's something she would do. Please. Her name is Lady Gentian. She is the daughter of Ob Klassenberg's third wife. I expect you will see her frequently concerning the dedication rituals. Lady Gentian. Okay, yeah, she's kind of repeating it to herself so she'll remember it. Hopefully she's not like me and she'll forget. Good morning, Lady Rosemine. Good morning, Daniel. I'd moved to the common room once I was ready for the advancement ceremony, only to find Daniel there waiting for me. Hartman and Cornelius were also present, but we'd already attended the academy together, so I didn't find that particularly strange. Daniel, though, seeing him here felt very strange indeed, especially with the blue robes he was wearing. Lenore, Angelica, I said, I am glad to have you in my service today. The men were wearing blue robes because they were going to attend a meeting with the Sovereign Temple while I went to the advancement ceremony and my fellowship gathering. I didn't know when Klassenberg was going to who Klassenberg was going to send, but Eglantine had sent word that today was the day. I shall entrust any discussion about the dedication rituals to Hartman, I announced. Daniel, Cornelius, make sure he does not do anything crazy. Yeah, he might. Especially if anybody decides to insult Rosemine. Oh, hands will be thrown on this one. If that was to happen. Which hopefully won't. Understood, they chorused. There was bound to be some lingering tension between Hartman and Emmanuel, so I wanted someone to keep an eye on them. Oh, yeah. You intend to reunite with some of your friends, right? Cornelius asked. Go and enjoy the fellowship gathering. As you will, dear brother. Cornelius sent me out into the entrance hall where the other students were standing in lines and wearing their Aranfest capes. It was cute seeing the first years look so tense. Brunhilde and Charlotte had distributed rinshams, so everyone had glossy hair. Let's go then, Wilfred said. First years, make sure not to forget our door number or lose your capes or brooches, otherwise you won't be able to get back into the dorm. With that, we opened the door and stepped out of the dormitory. There had been a slight change in the duchy rankings, but nothing too major. We lined up in the 8th spot. Yeah, because you guys didn't go up or down a rank this time. The advancement ceremony began as usual and segued into an explanation of the Royal Academy's classes. It was announced that students would now obtain their staffs in their 3rd year, as had been decreed during the Archduke Conference, and that each class's lesson plan had been heavily modified to incorporate past curricula. But I was still looking forward to attaining my staff, Bertilde groused, her lips pursed. The other nearby first years seemed more dissatisfied than not, which made sense as the reason for these changes hadn't been revealed. A stat proves you are a noble, I said, so I understand your desires to obtain one post-haste. But believe me, you have far more to gain from obtaining it later. Is that so? Indeed, we learned that one can obtain an abundance of divine protections from the gods through prayer and offering as mana. If you were to obtain your staff in your first year, before your mana changed due to these protections, it might not be able to control your mana in later years. That's what happened with mine. Rosemine, whatever. That is why these adjustments have been made. If you see any first years complaining about the decision in class, be sure to educate them. Bertilde nodded, her pout replaced with a look of understanding. Nicholas did as well, having apparently overheard my explanation. The advancement ceremony concluded, and we all separated into groups for the fellowship gathering. We Archduke candidates moved to the small hall, each with 3 of our retainers. Lord Wilfrid, Lady Rosamund, and Lady Charlotte of Aranfest the Eighth have arrived, and announced a scholarly man standing at the door. We went inside, then saw Hildebrand, who was in attendance this year as well. It soon came time for us to greet the prince, so Wilfrid spoke as our representative. Once again, Dragana, the goddess of time, has woven our threads together and blessed us with the meeting. I was squished between him and Charlotte. The Zent is looking forward to the dedication rituals, Hildebrand said, smiling brightly. I am not formally a student, but he has permitted me to take part in the men noble section, which should not put a strain on me. I am quite looking forward to participating in a Royal Academy ritual for the first time. Prince Hildebrand sure is a hard worker, isn't he? He compressed his mana to enter the archives, studied the ancient language, and now this. It's hard to believe he's not even a student yet. This time he actually wanted to participate in the dedication ritual as a member of the royal family. If the young Hildebrand continued to take part in future religious ceremonies as well, he would surely obtain many divine blessings. Perhaps he would even be the most likely candidate among the royals to become a Zent. Possibly. He would have to become Omni-Elemental, but even then I don't even know if it's possible because Eglantine and Rosemine were already Omni-Elemental before that. So I don't know if it counts if you become Omni-Elemental or if you are already Omni-Elemental. Because if you're already Omni-Elemental, I think it does work. But if you become it and you weren't originally, then I don't know if you would be able to, activate the shrines, essentially. It is crucial that Jurgen Smith's future rulers play an active role in religious ceremonies, I said. So I find your hard work and forward-thinking attitude admirable, Prince Hildebrand. I pray for that the upcoming dedication ritual will be a productive experience for you. From there, we stepped off stage to begin our sweep of the top-ranking duchies. First was Klassenberg. Sitting behind their table was a girl not much taller than me, a little cutie with blue eyes and violet hair. She was with her retainers and welcomed me with a smile. The peaceful, elegant air she exuded was characteristic of a Klassenberg woman. Wilfrid, Charlotte, and I knelt to perform the usual first-time greetings. Lady Gentian made me pray for a blessing in appreciation of the serendipitous meeting ordained by the harsh judgment of Avaglave, the god of life. You may. Lady Gentian accepted the blessings from our rings, then gave the same refined smile was used to seeing from Eglantine or Primavera. The Ob has informed me that we are to perform dedication rituals with Ehrenfest as joint research. As you know, I am only a first year, so there is much about the ceremony I will not understand. I request and will appreciate your guidance, Lady Rosamund. We greatly appreciate your cooperation, Lady Gentian. Next up was Dunkelfelder. Lestalot had graduated, so Hannelore was the only Archduke candidate at her table this year. Our eyes met and we exchanged warm smiles. Rosamund, Wilfrid said, and gently urged me forward because I was closer to Hannelore than he or Charlotte were. He was letting me greet her instead. Lady Hannelore, once again, Dragana, the goddess of time, has woven our threads together and blessed us with a meeting. It's been too long. We've seen each other during the Archduke conference, but that was how I genuinely felt. Ehrenfest has produced several more books this year that are sure to delight you. We have a dinner story with Lord Lestalot's illustrations, and more volumes about the history of your duchy. There is also the third volume of the story of Fernestine, but I suspect you have already finished it. Hannelore's male guards knights looked very interested in Ehrenfest's new books, but Hannelore had something else on her mind. Indeed, the conclusion moved me, she said. Is there going to be a new volume of Royal Academy love stories this year? I am eager to read more wonderful romantic tales. Of course, let us exchange books once again. I'm looking forward to it. The greeting concluded with more smiles, then we moved to Jwankel. There were several Archduke candidates at this table, including some fresh faces, with Ortwin standing as their representative. Wilfrid performed the standard greeting and was invited to take part in more joint research this year. I am afraid we already have plans to carry out a religious research with Klassenberg and Frembeltag. If we are to collaborate it will need to be on a smaller scale. We certainly do not have time for major research involving our entire duchy. Then we will need something to draw your interest, Ortwin replied. He then turned to look at me as he said, I shall consult Professor Gundolf. So he intends to take that approach again, does he? Well, no matter what Professor Gundolf says, I'm not going to do it. I wanted to spend my research time here at the Royal Academy creating magic tools for my library and improving the teleportation magic circle to make things easier for Muriella and Raymond. That said, I was going to be very busy this year in both Ehrenfest and the Royal Academy. I would need to attend more than a few meetings with the royal family. I also wanted to inspect my new villa and pick my sovereign retainers before my adoption. Plus, upon returning to Ehrenfest, I would need to bring the apprentice blues with me from the playroom to perform the dedication ritual. I also need to account for meetings with the nobles returning from the sovereignty to Ehrenfest and meeting Ehrenfest nobles in general. In short, I needed as much time back in Ehrenfest as I could get, so it was questionable whether I received any opportunities to work on my library's magic tools. It was likely that I would end up having to entrust the ingredients to Hersher. I expected this, but I really wasn't having much time to do the things that actually interest me. There was a dark cloud hanging over me by the time we left Jwankel, but my winter was going to be so painfully busy. Glissenmeyer and Hodgeletz were next, but I decided to leave those greetings to Charlotte. At the first of the two tables, Lozende of Glissenmeyer introduced us to your younger brother and sister. The former was a second year who had been adopted during the autumn. As I understand it, Glissenmeyer only had female Archduke candidates, and it wasn't rare for them to adopt men from their extended family to serve as grooms and produce more Archduke candidates. That said, it was unusual to adopt someone right before they were due to select their specialized courses. The 6-year girl representing Hochschlitz also introduced me to her two younger siblings. Wilfried appeared to be familiar with the brother, whereas the sister was adopted and a new student. There sure are a lot of new Archduke candidates this year, I mused. The number has shot right up. Don't you remember what Hartmut told us? Wilfried replied. The method to obtain more divine protections has resulted in more adoptions, remember? If anyone had told me that, I certainly didn't remember. As it turned out, more and more archducal families were adopting blood-related archnobles with enough mana who hadn't yet begun their specialized courses at the Royal Academy. Hartmut shared the information with us so that he wouldn't need to pull you away from your book. He knew you were making the most of a rare opportunity to read at your leisure, but you were still right there when he gave the report. You must have heard something. It isn't unusual to block out one's surroundings when reading. That said, it was my first chance to delve into a book in quite some time, so I'll acknowledge that I might have been a bit more oblivious than usual. Wait, Hartmut actively worked to preserve my reading time? The heck? He seemed so cool all of a sudden, my heart almost skipped a beat. I was extremely appreciative of what he had done, but at the same time, I didn't want to miss any important information. I would need to ask him at least to write out his reports so I could read them later. As I pondered the situation, Wilfried finished grading Ahrensbach. Detlinde had graduated, and Letizia wasn't yet old enough to enroll as a student, so Detlinde's retainer Martina was serving as her duchy's representative. How were Lady Detlinde and my uncle doing? Wilfried asked. Ahrensbach owes a debt of gratitude to Lord Ferdinand. Now that our foundation has been dyed, he has been helping us by offering his mana. What? They're making him do mana replenishment on top of paperwork in the religious ceremonies? He hasn't even married yet! As I stared at Martina in shock, she gave a troubled smile and continued, to repay Lady Detlinde for accepting the royal family's tyrannical demands that he be given a hidden room prior to their marriage, Lord Ferdinand offered to temporarily assist us with our mana replenishment. He truly is a kind man. Tyrannical demands? The order had only come because they were being tyrannical, delaying the star binding and refusing to let Ferdinand return to Ehrenfest. Making him supply mana on top of that was ridiculous. Moreover, was Ferdinand really the one who suggested this little compromise? Is he planning something like when he gathered ingredients under the cover of spring prayer? Or is Ahrensbach lying to avoid criticism? I considered these possibilities while Martina asked about Aurelia's condition. Both seemed valid, so I really wasn't sure. I went on to greet Gaussbuttel, then returned to our seats. Now the lower-ranking duchies would start coming to us. Morenru, who was 1 year above me, came to our table on behalf of Immerdink. She brushed back her purple hair and smiled, a sickly combination of pity and scorn that immediately put me on edge. Lady Rosemite, she said, word reached me that your adoption is being undone so that you can join the Sovereign Temple. It might be for a good cause, to spread the importance of religious ceremonies throughout Jurgenschmidt, but it must be tough knowing that you will lose your Archduke candidate status and enter the temple as a mere archnoble. How tragic. Ugh! I want to smack some people. Sounds like that rumor is popular everywhere. Our nobles had come to the same conclusion as a result of all the secret summons we'd received from the royal family. Had other duchies noticed them too? Alternatively, maybe Immerdink was just one of the duchies Georgine had incited to tell the king that the Saint of Ehrenfest deserved to be the sovereign high bishop? Based on the giggling I could hear, Morenru wasn't the only one pleased to hear that Ehrenfest was going to lose me. The Zend has not and will not order us to send Rosemite to the Sovereign Temple, Wolfried replied. His flat declaration caused a stir and drew more attention to us. That cannot be, Morenru uttered, blinking her orange eyes. Ehrenfest received several summons from the king during the Archduke conference. The royal family did propose the idea, but it was refused, I said with a smile, revealing the flaw in Morenru's assumption. Even if she believed that I was destined to be bumped down to the rank of an archnoble, I was currently still an Archduke candidate of a higher-ranking duchy. There was no reason for me to remain silent as she spread her misinformation. I continued, because of my health, I would not be able to endure the long trips to perform religious ceremonies in other duchies. Thus, Ehrenfest imposed a rule. He would only allow me to become the sovereign high bishop if archduke candidates of each duchy and members of the royal family went to the sovereign temple to learn the ceremonies themselves. Morenru paled upon hearing that I'd intended to drag the archducal families of every single duchy down with me. It was clear from her expression that she'd never even considered entering the temple. Unless the royal family and the country's obs agree to enter the sovereign temple, I will not be going there, I concluded. Still, depending on the Zed's decision, we might end up there together very soon with you clad in blue apprentice robes. Because of my sharp response to Immerdink, none of the other duchies asked about the rumor. Thank goodness. Frambeltech's archnoble spoke with Wilfred and Charlotte about this year's joint research. They were leading it, not I, so I took a step back seat and merely listened. As it turned out, Frambeltech's nobles were already visiting their temple to pray and dedicate their mana, hoping to obtain as many divine protections as possible. Oh, that reminds me. Our nobles still aren't going to the temple, aside from when they meet with the commoners. That thought lingered in my mind as I sat through the rest of the fellowship gathering. There were so many new Archduke candidates that it ended up much busier than usual. By the time we returned to the common room, Hartman and the others had already come back from their meeting. At once I asked for a report on the state of the dedication ritual. Wilfred and Charlotte listened as well, since they would need to oversee the lower ranks when they took part. Go work on the negotiations, I said. What did you decide? Because the rituals count as joint research and not part of the curricula, they cannot be held in place of classes, Hartman replied. Instead, they will take place on Earth Days. Most students wanted to experience a religious ceremony as soon as possible to increase their divine protections, but the professors considered joint research an optional addition for those who had already finished their classes. Thus, it was decided that those who wished to participate could do so on their own time. Not all students will participate since this is joint research and not a class, Hartman explained, and making an exception now would only lead to trouble in the future. The earliest time this can be done outside of class is on an Earth Day. I thought Klassenberg would push to hold it even sooner, but apparently not. The Sovereign Temple had asked for the ritual to be done all at once rather than in 3 parts, but the Royal Academy had declined, since the man disparity between the lay nobles and the Archduke candidates were simply too great. The Sovereign Temple kept hounding Lady Eglantine to agree with them, but because these blue priests and shrine maidens fell unconscious during the previous dedication ritual, Emmanuel was left without a leg to stand on, Hartman said with an amused smirk. Lady Eglantine then suggested that the younger students participate in a group below their current status for safety's sake, in the same way that Prince Hildebrand intends to participate as a men noble. Charlotte sighed in relief. Prioritizing the student's safety is a wise move. Offering mana is hard when you're not used to doing it. The younger lay nobles might be better off not participating at all, Wilfred added. It can be hard to tell how much mana you have left when performing replenishments. Do you know which Earth Day we will need to perform on? Lady Rose might need to return to Ehrenfest as soon as she can, Hartman said, so we have decided to hold the ceremony for Archnobles and Archduke candidates on the first Earth Day. The men nobles will perform on the second one, then the lay nobles on the third. I nodded along with Hartman, but Cornelius glared at him. I thought we should be more considerate of Rosamund's health, so I suggested we start with the lay nobles and work our way up from there. He said, that wasn't a bad idea. The first week of the academic term was invariably loaded with classes, so being able to rest on the Earth Day was essential. By the 3rd week, I would have already passed them all. Daniel sighed. Cornelius wanted to prioritize her health, while Hartman wanted to carry out her wish of returning to Ehrenfest as soon as possible. It was a terrifying battle to behold. Lenore similarly shook her head with a sigh. Lady Eglantine intervened as an arbitrator, and it was decided that the first ritual will comprise the Archduke candidates and Archnobles, since acting in descending order of status was ideal. They argued in front of the royal family? Wilfred and Charlotte asked in unison, both wide-eyed. I was surprised as well. Just what were those two doing? Lady Eglantine gave a half smile and said that she respected them both for being so dedicated to their charge. Daniel explained, a distant look in his eyes. But I thought I was going to die then and there. Lenore looked equally as exhausted. I wanted to put my head in my hands and plead with them never to argue in front of the royal family again. Was this how my guardians felt whenever I did something crazy? Maybe. Probably. I suppose I will need to apologize to Lady Eglantine the next time we meet. First week classes. Classes were due to begin tomorrow, so everyone had started studying desperately the moment that we returned from the fellowship gathering. Because the change in classwork was announced in advance, we can expect the Drwonkel students to be a mighty foe. Charlotte said while studying alongside her peers, let us strive to maintain our current rank. Ehrenfest has been studying the old curricula for years, Wilfred assured the others, taking the opposite approach to motivating them. We don't have much to worry about. Of the adults who had come to participate in the rituals, Damiel, Cornelius, Lenore, and Hartman acted as tutors, looking out for the first years who hadn't managed to secure enough study time. Angelica instead opted to guard me, but that didn't mean she wasn't being helpful. Her stalwart presence allowed the apprentice knights to focus on their schoolwork, so she was indirectly assisting the students. It was the same as how her presence in the temple helped the other guards devote themselves to paperwork. Lisletta, Angelica, I wish to return to my room to send a couple of ordinances, I said. Together we went to my room. I didn't want to distract the others from their studies. My first ordinance was to Solange, asking to schedule the new students' registration, while the other was to Eglantine, apologizing for Hartman and Cornelius' argument, and warned her that something unexpected was likely to happen during the dedication ritual. In response, Solange told me to bring our new students at lunchtime 2 days from now. Eglantine asked me to stay behind after our next class with her to explain what I thought might happen. How am I meant to elaborate? Her guess is as good as mine. Everyone spent the next morning studying as much as they could, taking only a short rest for breakfast. Then they headed to their first classes. This year, our fourth years had written lessons in the morning and practical classes in the afternoon. Everyone passed the former without incident. Many duchies had seemed troubled about the change in the curricula, but the top-ranking duchies had studied more than enough in preparation. In the afternoon, we went to our brewing class. Our exam required us to make a rejuvenation potion of a remarkably high quality, which I finished ASAP with the help of a time-saving circle. Compared to the paper Ferdinand wanted, it was so mind-numbingly easy to brew that I ended up needing to while away the rest of the lesson. As I gazed around the room, I noticed that everyone was more experienced than before. In particular, several of the apprentice scholars were doing very well, most likely because they had so many opportunities to brew. You could pick out the apprentice scholars at a glance, I said. They looked so much more skilled than everyone else. But they were still unable to keep up with your advanced methods, even though you are an Archduke candidate, Handler remarked with a bemused smile while carefully cutting up some herbs. Oh, but Lady Handler, I happen to be a scholar as well. There's nothing strange about my experience with brewing. Rosemine, normal Archduke candidates don't make their own magic tools or rejuvenation potions, Wolfried interjected. He had a deft grip on his Messer-transformed stab, while Handler was holding hers with an unsteady hand. Their lack of experience was clear to see. Still, even Archduke candidates are required to brew their own engagement face stones, I replied. Lord Ortwin seems rather experienced. Perhaps you should work on your brewing skills instead of always focusing on Gwenin, dear brother? If you cannot even cut with adequate precision, how will you manage to spread your mana evenly? Wolfried grunted and stared at his transformed stab. Ferdinand wouldn't hesitate to fail a brew based on how its ingredients were prepared. The next day meant more written lessons, which we once again passed with flying colors. Perhaps because my retainers had taught them, even the first years received fairly high scores. This lunchtime, our new students were due to be registered at the library. I ate quickly, then immediately took them and my student retainers to meet with Solange. Of course, because the registration had nothing to do with the dedication rituals, my adult retainers stayed in the dormitory. As we made our way down the halls, Bertilde approached me and said in a bright voice, "You really love libraries, don't you, Lady Rosemine? My sister told me about the Royal Academy's library has 2 shoe mills, one black and one white." I could guess that Brunhilde hadn't been the only one to mention Schwartz and Weiss. Lysletta and the others were always going on about how cute the shoe mills were. "Yes, and they truly are adorable," I replied, then turned to address everyone. "That said, take care not to touch them. There are protective measures in place to keep them from being stolen." I opened the door to the library with the pass Solange had sent me, then let everyone inside. As usual, she and the shoe mills met us outside the reading room. "It has been some time, Professor Solange." "Indeed, Lady Rosemine, I'm glad to see you well." As we exchanged greetings, Schwartz and Weiss surrounded me. They were as adorable as ever. "Here, milady. Gone a long time, milady." "I am pleased to see you both," I said with a smile. "Professor Solange, Professor Hortensia in the office?" Solange looked troubled as she said, "No, she is away at the moment. It would seem she took ill and is currently bedridden." "Is her room not here in the library?" I asked quizzically. I didn't understand why Solange sounded so uncertain when they shared the same dormitory. Solange slowly shook her head. "Hortensia's husband sent her an order to return home midway through the summer. She hasn't returned since." Ooh. Remember what happened in the last volume, when the whole Schlaftrum's flowers thing, and her husband confronted her, like, "How did you know about this?" That's where it ended, so who knows what's gone on since then. I'm a little worried for Hortensia. After the Archduke conference, Hortensia had ended up with significantly less work to do. Thus, she had started commuting from home, at least until she received an abrupt summons from her husband, at which point she had stopped showing up entirely. She was perfectly healthy at the time, Solange continued. She sent word that she doubted she would return to the library anytime soon, and that was the last I'd heard from her. The most recent update I could provide came from her husband right before the term started. He said that she had fallen ill at the end of the autumn and would not be able to perform her duties as a librarian this winter. He probably did something to her. Dude, what the fuck? Seriously, we're trying to prevent crazy things from happening here, dude. What are you doing? The snowy Royal Academy was anything but a good place to rest and recuperate. Letting Hortensia's return to work would only make her even more unwell, so it was best that she did take some time away. I mean, yes, but at the same time, I suspect something fishy is going on here. Hortensia does not... I doubt Hortensia is actually sick. She's probably being held hostage at her home by her husband and who knows who else. Or maybe he poisoned her. Who knows? The end of autumn was quite a while ago, was it not, I asked. I sincerely hope she feels better and is only staying away from work to be safe. Yes, truly, I am worried about her, but I cannot check on her at the start of term when the library is so busy. Someone said, wearing a sad smile, now that she was once again in the Royal Academy's only librarian. I will simply need to trust that she is going to recover soon. From there she began registering the new students. I decided to take the opportunity to look around the reading room. Schwartz, are there any new books? I asked. Here. Schwartz guided me toward a bookcase housing various new study guides. I glimpsed the door to the closed stack archive along the way and remembered what Hortensia had said to Detlinde. I still wonder what that whole Schlaftrum's Flowers thing was about. Ferdinand hadn't sent me any updates since he told me he'd look into it. I imagine he's looking into some leads and doesn't want to tell you yet until he knows for certain, and I'm guessing it's not good. I know that the whole flowers thing is supposed to be a euphemism for sex, and I'm assuming that it's prostitutes. But the way it's when they're talking about it, I'm assuming that they're probably drugging the prostitutes or something, and that's what it means. Maybe that's what it means, because remember, they were looking for Trug initially, and then they started looking for the symptoms that involved Trug, and then they found Schlaftrum's Flowers. So, yeah, that's what I'm kind of guessing it is, and I'm assuming it's an Ahrensbach thing. Or maybe a Lanzenau thing, who knows? He was probably too busy, and as that thought crossed my mind, Feline came to get me. The registration was done. It was nice to see you, I said to Solange. I shall try to come again soon. That sounds wonderful. There's a large-scale ceremony being held this year, I am told. It will test you, I am sure, but you have my full support. Please do return when you find the time. Overjoyed that she was encouraging me, I gave an enthusiastic right, and went to leave, but before I could reach the door, Schwartz and Weiss stopped me. "Man, my lady, Hortensia gone." "Oh, that's right," Solange said. "They haven't been supplied with mana since the start of the term, Lady Rosemite. I don't mean to oppose, but could you replenish their reserves a little?" I could guess that the face stone Hortensia had given Solange was depleted. As I stroked the Shuma's foreheads, an idea came to mind. "Professor Solange, since Professor Hortensia is absent, it might be wise to petition the royal family for more support from the library committee. I plan to spend most of the term back in Ehrenfest." "That is an excellent idea. I shall contact Prince Hildebrand at once," Solange replied, starting to brighten up. "It would seem that Hortensia's husband is teaching him swordplay. He might know more about her condition." A wave of relief washed over me as I exited the library. We had music, as this afternoon's practical class. Same as last year, we were asked to play a song chosen for us and a song of our own choice. I spent some of my time at the temple practicing with Rosina, so I was able to complete the former without issue. Rather than give me a pass, Pauline merely frowned. "Is something the matter, Professor Pauline? That will not do at all, Lady Rosamond. Where was the blessing?" I didn't think that was part of the test. Since last year's classes, I'd visited the shrines and upgraded my staff, so I didn't need to worry about rogue blessings anymore. I couldn't say that to her, but there were blessings relevant to a music lesson? "Blessings appear when one plays in earnest, do they not?" she asked. "Refusing to give one simply will not do, especially when you hope to spread the value of religious ceremonies through your joint research with Klassenberg and Frembo text, so play again, this time with the blessing." "Ah, come on! Leave her alone about this. She doesn't want to do blessings. That one last year was not really her fault there. So now you're expecting it now? Dudes, freaking entitled much." Truth be told, I was completely baffled, but I channeled on into my ring and sang a prayer. It was dedicated to the goddess of water, so the light of my blessing came out green. "An excellent performance," Pauline said with a satisfied smile. "For Lutraine, the goddess of water must be overjoyed." She then gave me a pass, but I was starting to get very concerned. Don't tell me my whirling instructor is also going to expect a blessing? You might want to find that out before you start. Once the lesson was over, I returned to my room in the dormitory. My student retainers were studying in the common room, leaving only Lisletta, Lenore, and Angelica with me. I consulted them about Pauline's demand and expressed my concern that the same thing was going to happen during my whirling class. "If a professor requests it, why not give a blessing?" Lisletta asked. "Is that not better than having to desperately contain it?" "A data would cause you any trouble," Lenore agreed. "Is there a problem?" I cast my eyes down. It just bothers me that she didn't ask anybody else. I was the only one. Lenore was right that I could give out blessings with ease, but that still seemed unfair that my grade and mine alone had depended on it. I was already being singled out, which was just going to make things worse. Could she have done it deliberately to make you stand out? Lenore? By reinforcing the idea that you are special, the professors are making it easier for the other duchies to accept your adoption into the royal family. For a moment, I almost agreed with her suggestion, but then I shook my head. The royal family had said that they would prepare the adoption in secret. Why would they have leaked such sensitive information to the Royal Family Academy's professors, who had deep connections to their home duchies, and fed intelligence back to them? The royal family could easily be pulling the strings, asking them to draw attention to you under one guise or another. It seems safe to assume the professors hadn't been made privy to the real situation, considering how many duchies believe you are joining the Sovereign Temple. According to Lenore, during their meeting about the dedication ritual, Eglantine had asked me for me to perform all three ceremonies. Even more evidence that the royal family wanted to cement my reputation as somebody special. Furthermore, Lenore continued, as you are entering the royal family through abnormal means, this should minimize the jealousy and resentment you face. It's better to have people understand why they chose to adopt you, otherwise they'll wonder why they weren't chosen instead. Now that makes sense. Well, as long as it's for a good reason, I said. In any case, I think I shall do some reading before dinner. One moment, Lizetta said, then held out a box. Please check this first. I received it from Raymond, who was waiting for your classes to finish. It is a delivery from Lord Ferdinand and Lady Letizia. There are letters inside. The letters and everything else in the box had already been checked for anything dangerous. I opened it up and saw a tube with a string at the end and a small glass jars containing what appeared to be red, green, and yellow face stones. According to this letter, Lizetta said, Letizia has shared with you a toy and some sweets she received from Lanzanov. The toy can only be used once, it says, but it does something beautiful. She wishes for Ehrenfest to enjoy it as well. Letizia had adored the sweets and meals I'd sent her, so she'd sent me some of the presents she'd received from Lanzanov. Ferdinand had told her that I would appreciate them as a lover of strange things. As well as the correspondence from Lady Letizia, Lord Ferdinand included some details about Ahrensbach. If you are confident that you will score highly tomorrow, you may spend the time until dinner responding to them. Hartman and the others will oversee the students. I thank you ever so much, Lizetta. She nodded and started instructing the others as my head attendant. Angelica guarded the door. Lenore helped Cornelius tutor the first years. I put away my Harspiel and study utensils, then took the box into my hidden room and started reading the letters. The jars containing what I'd assumed were face stones actually held colorful candies, while the tube was essentially a party popper that shot out pretty things when you pulled its string. Letizia described Ferdinand taking one of the toys and dissecting it. Of course he would. Seriously? Don't you ever take a break from being a mad scientist? Nope. Considering he enjoys it, no. He's not going to. Letizia went on to explain that she had given him the toy in exchange for a reduced workload. It was nice to know that she hadn't ended up in tears, at least. She was probably more used to dealing with Ferdinand now they'd spent so much time together. I wonder, what might the letter from Ferdinand say? Oh boy. He had written that Ahrensbach Foundation had been died before the start of the current academic term, and that he was registered with it so he could supply it with his mana. Letizia was also devoting mana, though she was relying on face stones while she got used to the process. The envoys from Lanzanov had apparently returned home at the end of autumn. Then the border gate had been closed behind them. Ferdinand concluded by saying he wanted to purchase the recipes for the dishes I'd sent. I don't see anything about his Gadol question. Maybe it wasn't important after all? I touched the letter, but no hidden text appeared. On the one hand, I was glad that he hadn't pressed me about it, but on the other, this probably means he's going to corner me at the introductory tournament and ask me directly. Yep, because you didn't answer him. He's going to want to know. He knows something is up. He knows something has changed because you didn't automatically say that Ehrenfest is your Gadol and your family is too. So, yeah, he knows something's up. He just doesn't know what it is, and he's going to want to know. You know how he is. Well, if that happens, I'll just be frank with him. No matter how much I rack my brain, I can't figure out what he wants from me. Why does he want to know in the first place? He really needs to explain these things? I gave a self-assured nod while I wrote my response. On the front, I thanked Letizia and said to Ferdinand, these recipes will not come cheap. I am looking forward to our negotiations. Then I turned over the paper, readied my invisible ink, and prepared a simple message. You agreed to supply Ahrensbach with mana, even though you haven't yet had your star binding? Just what are you plotting? The next morning's written lessons went as smoothly as ever. Then we had another brewing class, wherein we were told to create a synchronization potion. A concoction that made it easier to push one's mana into something else. Herschel projected the brewing instructions on a white cloth at the front of the classroom, then cackled and asked us, does anyone know what this potion is used for? I answered at once, brimming with certainty. It makes it easier for knights to synchronize with criminals and such when their memories are being viewed. I consumed the very same potion when I had my mind peered into. Herschel gave me a very strange look. Another unusual example, Lady Rosamond. Does it have other uses? I asked, tilting my head at her. It was then that I noticed the uncomfortable expression on the other students' faces. I could tell they wanted to mutter, how doesn't she know? And what is she going on about? Well, she's not wrong on this one. That is what happened. That's what happened in the last, in the part after the, Trombe hunt where he had to view her memories. He gave her that potion. But then again, it does have another use, and she was never told. Obviously, because, it's a bit of a interesting reason. And we're about to find out. Herschel heaved an exasperated sigh before giving me an answer. This potion is most commonly used to help newly married couples dye each other's mana. Were it only used in the circumstances you have suggested, which requires the permission of an ob, it would not be taught in a standard course at the Royal Academy. Ferdinand never told me that! We were taught to make the potion because it would prove essential to us all in the future. I already knew how to brew it, thanks to Ferdinand, but I evidently hadn't known its main purpose. Ferdinand, you dummy! Teach me its normal use, not the weird one! Yeah! Well, I guess he did it so that way you would understand it better. But still, you could give the real reason that it's normally made, as well as your reason. Because it has more than one use, you know. Still criticizing him in my head, I got straight to brewing. It was a potion that even lay nobles could use, so making it was simple enough. Your brew is perfect, Herschel informed me once I was done, but your earlier remark was still very bizarre. Please blame my mentor for that, I replied. But in any case, why is a potion necessary for dyeing someone, and when exactly would you use it? Herschel made a rare, troubled smut face and pressed a hand against her forehead. That Ferdinand, she groaned. And since the others weren't even close to finishing their brew, she played along. Let us begin at the start, she said. Nobles inherit their elemental affinities from their parents, Mana. You know this, I trust. Yes, they also get the element of their birth season, right? The elements one has from birth are called aptitudes and can be checked using one's baptismal medal. On the whole, it is easier to cast spells or brew with elements one has an aptitude for. Herschel gave a satisfied nod. Correct. Channeling mana into something does not immediately lead to mixing. The mana already inside will resist and repulse it. That said, there is minimal resistance between closely related family members. I expect you knew that as well. I remembered how much it hurt when Ferdinand poured his mana into me during the Trombe hunt. Yeah, where he had to heal her injury. Because, you know, they couldn't have it bleeding and fuel the Trombe. My body had naturally resisted it, but he had exploited that to seal my wound. There was also the time when I touched the divine instrument Hennelore had used and attempted to channel mana into it so that I could make one of my own. Her mana had repelled mine, and we had ended up shrieking a little from the impact. That's right, I declared, overflowing with pride. In fact, I had plenty of experience with it. Explain, please. When you say something like that, you need to give context, like, oh, it happened when I did this, or when I did this. Otherwise, she's gonna assume the worst case scenario here, girl. Herschel froze for a moment, blinking several times, and muttered, You do? I must have said something strange. I shan't ask any questions for both our sakes, she eventually said. The potion reduces the resistance one would usually feel, and makes it easier to dye another's mana. A beverage mixed with this potion is normally inhibited before a couple retires to the bedroom. To prepare their hearts for accepting another person's mana, a man and a woman getting engaged would trade face stones containing their own mana, and wear their partners against their skin. Unlike charms, the stones will consistently leak mana. I see, that's interesting, I replied. Wait, hold on. Has Ferdinand dyed me with his mana by chance? I don't know. You might need to get some clues on that, because I'm not exactly sure. If somebody knows and it does not give me any context here, please tell me. Herschel had more or less dismissed my suggested use for the potion, but he had definitely used one when peering into my memories. That doesn't mean he necessarily dyed you with his mana. That just means he made it easier for him to get into your head. It doesn't mean he got his mana in you. Maybe that explained why I'd been baptized with elements when Dirk hadn't, even though we were both children with the Devouring, who hadn't inherited any from our parents? Can I not get married anymore? Like, mana-wise? Professor Herschel, this may be a foolish question, but is the potion only ever used once? That is, once your mana has died, does it remain that way forever? My question was met with a look of complete exasperation. Lady Rosemine, what are you saying? Having one's mana died somewhere through the use of a potion will not prevent it from ever eventually returning to its normal color. The new mana made within you always takes its natural form. Married couples would end up with exceedingly similar mana during their lovey-dovey stretch of non-stop dying, but when their honeymoon phase ended, their influence on one another would steadily fade. Once the wife became pregnant, it was best for the husband to regularly channel mana into her so that he could also influence the baby's mana. That was probably one reason why it wasn't a good idea to take another wife when one of them was already with child. I see, so one would simply have to wait. That is good to know. Then without a second thought, I added, how does one's mana flow after they drink the potion? This time, Herschel gave me an exceptionally displeased frown. She rubbed her forehead and let out a heavy sigh and said, Lady Rosemine, save such questions for Lady Elvira or Lady Florencia when you return home. Your appearance would suggest you are still too young to learn about such things, but I suppose you are in an age where you would need to hear them. The birds and the bees talk there! Oh, dear. Sex ed. I mean, she did say the couples take the potion before retiring to the bedroom. There's bound to be some elaborate ceremony or another involved, so it's always the case with nobles, but I get it. I understood it once, but still, I probably shouldn't have asked in the first place. Everyone in earshot was averting their gaze, clearly feeling awkward. Some couldn't even muster the courage to come forward when they finished their brew. Sorry. Oh, this is what happens when she doesn't have isn't raised among nobles. She doesn't know this stuff. And Ferdinand hasn't taught her anything like that. I mean, she didn't even know the main use of that potion. So of course he didn't tell her. Why didn't you tell her? Or at least tell her to ask Lady Avara or Lady Florencia. If you want more questions about this, have more questions about this potion, go and ask your mothers. That's what he should have done. No, he didn't. Rosamund, how have you already experienced mana resistance? Wilfred demanded. Tell me, who you experienced it with? Lady Hannelore? Lady Hannelore? A buzz ran through the class, and all eyes fell on Hannelore. She recoiled at a sudden rush of attention, then regarded me with anxious eyes. Lady Rosamund, I am unsure what you were referring to. Didn't you remember? It was during our joint research when we were discussing how to pass on divine instruments. I poured my mana into your instrument, then your mana repelled it. Ah, then, Hannelore replied with a smile, nodding her understanding. You only channeled a tiny amount of your mana, and while it surprised me, my own was entirely unaffected. You may rest easy. That was not what Professor Herscher meant. Everyone else went back to work, either grumbling or looking thoroughly disappointed. The spicy drama that had caught their attention ended up being neither spicy nor dramatic. Oh my god! I do wonder something. In our world, obviously, we had, same-sex couples, men or women, but is there a thing like that in this world? Or is that non-existent? Whatever. Rosamund, you seriously need to work on how you phrase things, Wilfred griped. That was so misleading. You made it sound as if you drank a potion so that I could dye your mana. Oh, I see, I replied, looking back on the situation. Neither one of us wanted to spread a misunderstanding like that when our engagement was destined to be cancelled. Wait, why wasn't he worried about his own mana? Wasn't one of those potions involved when Sylvester looked into his memories? Wait, did they look at his memories? Let me know. That was when I realized something important. Plenty of people in Ehrenfest had drunk that potion. It wasn't just Wilfred and me. I sincerely apologize for misleading the class, I said, but in my defense, there are people all around me who have imbibed that potion. Why was I not right to be worried about what might happen to their mana? All around you? I shan't mention them by name, but there were quite a few children who used it between last winter and spring, remember? It would concern me if that had a long-lasting impact on their futures, especially if their innocence was proven. You make a good point, Wilfred replied, then fell into thought. Plus, even though it was part of their jobs, the knights who had to synchronize with criminals had a heavy burden to bear, I said, remembering how they had grimaced at their duty. Using the magic tool meant the flow of mana had been entirely one-sided, but that was still deeply unpleasant. You don't need to worry about that kind of thing. The potion doesn't last very long. At most, it would have taken a month for the influence to disappear entirely. So I see. So everyone's mana is fine then. Just a month? Huh, I was worried for nothing. I thought that Ferdinand might have permanently dyed my mana had caused me to panic, but everything was fine. It was also good to know that Matthias and the others wouldn't encounter any lasting issues as a result of their interrogators having dyed them. I'd committed some embarrassing faux pas during my brewing class, but today was a new day. I'd attended my written lesson in the morning before heading to my Archduke candidate classes in the afternoon. There I found a stand in front of my desk, which was right beside Hannelore's. Hello again, Lady Hannelore. I am always glad to be beside you in class, Lady Rosamund. You are a fount of useful advice. As we exchanged pleasantries, Eglantine entered as our professor. Her graceful dance-like steps, gorgeous blonde hair, peaceful smile, and unfaltering orange eyes were all exactly as I remembered them. But there was something strange about her. She seemed so much prettier than before. Maybe it was her overflowing vigor or her relaxed posture. I couldn't say for sure, but all eyes were naturally drawn to her. It is good to see you all again, Eglantine said. The models shall now be brought in. On cue, several assistants brought models into the room and set one down at each of our tables. A magic tool modeled after our foundation was nestled in pure white sand, simulating a duchy. Once we had all received models and the assistants had taken their leave, Eglantine directed us to dye the magic tool before us. Some of the students who had worked tirelessly to dye theirs last year pilled faces and muttered, "Again?" Yes, indeed, Eglantine replied. We cannot possibly ask you to sustain your box gardens outside of term time, so each year you will need to re-dye them from scratch. This certainly was more mana efficient, but the students who barely had enough mana to be counted as Archduke candidates didn't seem to care about that. They stared at their boxes in vexation. Anyone who hesitates to dye a magic tool of this size will never become an ob, Eglantine said frankly. A true foundation is larger and considerably harder to dye and maintain. Archduke candidates strove to become obs, so we really needed to be able to dye a model this small, but several of us were at a clear disadvantage. Under better circumstances, some of the people in our class, namely those from lesser duchies or from the mana-deprived duchies that lost the Civil War, would have been demoted to archnobles, but their territories needed someone to supply them with mana. Now then, you may begin, Eglantine announced. I formed my staff, touched it against the magic tool, then started channeling mana into it. The white sand turned into dark earth, from which frost began to surface. You are as quick as ever, Lady Rosemine. The next step for this term is to create registration face stones and a replenishment hall for the rest of the archducal family. Understood. Only an archduke could create the registration face stones necessary for the replenishment hall. The room had a 7-person limit. There were only as many spots to offer mana as there were primary and supreme gods. But there was no limit to how many face stones one could make. Obdurwanko, for example, carried out tons of adoptions, and the duchy's archducal family was filled with adults. I'd heard from Adolphine that it wasn't common for minors to supply mana, but they were still registered in case the need arose. It must be nice to have so many archduke candidates. Is something the matter, Lady Rosemine? Annalore asked. That has quite a stern look on your face. Oh, no, I was just contemplating who can supply their foundation with mana. Truth be told, I envy duchies like Duranko that have such large populations. Discounting students, Ehrenfest Archducal family comprises only 3 members. Hannelor's expression began to cloud over. That cannot be easy. Back in Dunkelfelger, my grandmother and grandfather are in good health, as are my uncles. If we include my father's second and third wives, our immediate family alone contains more than 7 adults, and now my brother has come of age as well. Next year, the second wife's child would enroll at the Royal Academy, and they had plenty more underage Archduke candidates. How I wish we had such a rich population of elites, I sighed. That said, if a middle duchy such as Ehrenfest is struggling with so few people, Ahrensbach must be in truly dire straits, yeah. Yeah, I started. The only adults in Ahrensbach who could supply mana to its foundation were Georgine and Detlinde, who had just recently come of age. I suppose that Letizia could also help out, but she wasn't even old enough to attend the Royal Academy. Okay, fine, I'm still mad at them for working Ferdinand to the bone, but I can relate to them wanting all the help they can get. Like, a lot. As I resisted the urge to let loose a miserable groan, I noticed that my mana had finished filling the box. The feeling was like my flowing blood being turned around and pushed back for a second. Professor Eglantine, I am done. Then let us make the replenishment hall. Do you have a face stone ready? Yes, and it already saturated with my mana. I shall not turn it into gold dust. With this fade paper suffice for the schematics. Because I'd studied under Ferdinand, I already knew what to do. I took out the tools I'd been instructed to prepare for glass and went over the steps. Yes, it will, Eglantine replied. Draw this magic circle with your stylo. I turned the face stone I brought into gold dust, then glared at the magic circle I would use to make my replenishment hall. It was packed with the sigils of every god, which made it look terribly complex and agonizing to draw. Can I not copy and paste this? I tried selecting the magic circle with my fingers, but none of my mana came out to cover it. So much for that idea. As much as I adored my copy and paste spell, its uses sure were limited. I accepted defeat and got to work with my stylo. Serves me right for trying to have some fun. By the time I finished drawing my magic circle, Hannelore had finished dyeing her box. She was currently holding and channeling mana into her face stones, trying to turn it into dust. You made short work of that magic circle, Lady Rosemine, she observed. I would not say that, I replied. The process was time-consuming and very exhausting. She peered down at my circle. You drew it exceptionally quickly and exceptionally well. It didn't seem that good to me. From a distance, one could see that several of the sigils were somewhat deformed. Do you really think so? I said. Ferdinand regularly scolded me for being slow and not properly balancing my sigils. They were always, in his words, not beautiful enough. I doubt this would even receive a pass from him. He probably wouldn't. In the case of complex spells, even a slight change in the positioning of the sigils could reduce the magic's performance. But because the circle was drawn using a stylo, I'll need to redo it again and again before Ferdinand was satisfied. That sounds even harsher than mother's tutoring, Hannelore said, looking surprised. As it turned out, Dunkelfelger's first wife was strict as well. I couldn't help but give a little chuckle. Ferdinand may be a harsh tutor, but one can eventually figure out the limits of his expectations. From there, it becomes much easier and quicker to eke out a pass. You need only find those limits with your mother and take care not to exceed them too much, lest the bar be raised even higher. Hannelore balked and sighed. You remain surprisingly at ease, even under strict tutelage, I see. At ease? Not even close. Studying under Ferdinand is agony. I spend most of my time wishing I could read instead. My studies were such hard going that I was seldom able to enjoy my books. But to everyone else, it seemed as though Ferdinand afforded me all the time in the world. Lady Rosemine, Eglantine said, make your replenishment hall when you are ready. Right. I used something similar to an N-Twicon to create magic tools for supplying mana, then connected them to the foundation. By the time it was done, I made 7 contribution phase stones in total. I had already made them once before doing a tutoring session, so I was pretty sure there was nothing wrong with them. That's all, I guess. I turned in my work, which Eglantine received with a wide-eyed stare. That is quite wonderful, she said. Thanks to Ferdinand, I managed to complete my replenishment haul sooner than expected. But it was precisely because I pulled ahead of everyone else that annoying extra work such as the dedication ritual ended up being dumped on me. From here, Eglantine continued, I shall teach you how to make citizenry medals as well as how to register and dispose of them. But we are out of time, so that can wait until next time. In the blink of an eye, my mood darkened. To dispose of someone's medal was to bring about their immediate death. I was reminded of the executions Ferdinand had carried out in Haas. Eliminating criminals who were attempted to flee punishment, such as the former Gieb Gerlach, was a necessary evil, but it still didn't feel right to me. Remembering these executions made me sick to my stomach. In class, we would simply be registering medals with the mana from Faith Stones and disposing of them altogether. Had I not witnessed those harrowing events in Haas, I probably wouldn't have thought twice about this, but the sight of the crumbling Faith Stones reminded me of that day. It sickened me and sent me into a depression for quite a while afterward. It's fine, they're only Faith Stones, there's nothing to worry scared about. Nothing at all. The bell signifying the end of class then rang. As everyone busily cleared away their things and exited the room, Eglantine called me over with a smile. Lady Rosamond, would you mind staying a moment? There's something I wish to discuss with you. Of course, Professor Eglantine. Wilfred and Handler also made to leave, though they shot me several concerned glances as they went. I bid them farewell, then when the assistants had taken away the boxes, leaving only Eglantine and me in the room, I got straight to the point. So, what do you wish to discuss? I asked. You said that something might occur during the dedication rituals, did you not? To what were you referring? I would ask for the details. That was almost verbatim how she had responded to my ordinance. I explained that I didn't have any more information to give. So you know that something will occur, but not what that something might be. Indeed, as you know, the Grucheshite requires prayer. One must create the necessary pillars of light, then pray at the Royal Academy's various shrines. Eglantine nodded. The ivory slates in the underground archive also noted that one had to pray while circling the shrines here at the Academy. And, I continued, the chapel in the farthest hall is a place of prayer. I simply expect something to happen when everyone gathers together as part of the dedication rituals. But nothing happened when we performed it last year, Eglantine replied, a quizzical expression on her face. Sure, we'd seen a pillar of red light, but that wasn't out of the ordinary here at the Royal Academy. I could only hope that this year's rituals would be just as eventful. Last year, the Sovereign Temple refused to assist us. We also surrounded a chalice made from my staff instead of using the shrine's magic tools, so none of our mana reached them. But now the Sovereign Temple is going to help us, and we intend to pray at the shrine. Not to mention the dedication ritual had taken place before I'd circled the shrines and caused a giant magic circle to appear in the sky above. There were so many new factors to consider. If you still doubt me, I said, remember that something unusual occurred when the divine instruments were used for the Starbind ceremony. I sent you that ordinance because I thought you might appreciate some time to prepare emotionally. Anastasius outright told me that he preferred surprises he could prepare for. He had also said that something bizarre was bound to happen whenever I got involved, but that was neither here nor there. Eglantine giggled. I should inform the Zent so that we may all prepare ourselves emotionally. That matter aside, a new Archduke candidate from Klassenburg enrolled at the Royal Academy this year. She has not yet begun pressing her mana, so she means to attend the dedication ritual for men nobles. Lord Wilfred is leading that one if my memory serves me. Correct, I replied with a smile. I would not have managed to perform all 3 on my own. Hence the proposal that my siblings share the burden. She smiled in turn, a warm smile as if she were admiring something sweet. There can be no mistaking how much your retainers care about you, Lady Rosamond. During our meeting about the dedication ritual, 2 members of your entourage were very insistent about easing the burden on you. Eglantine went on to say that she wanted to invite Lady Gentia and me to a tea party before the dedication ritual, then asked me to give the fresh-faced student my protection. That last part didn't seem relevant to our joint research, or maybe I was under a misapprehension of some kind? I can understand being asked to teach her about the dedication ritual, but why would a student from Klassenburg the First need protection from Ehrenfest the Eighth? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Is there much I can do for her in my current position, I asked? Perhaps I could wait until my adoption when my status would increase? Come now, Lady Rosamond, there's no need to complicate things. All you must do is invite her to a tea party and treat her with kindness. Well, if you are sure. I couldn't imagine a tea party being too much of an inconvenience, assuming that we could find the time for it. Am I going to have time to research those magic tools from my library? I can't think of anything I want to do more, but, well... I am ever so glad you accept. Let us make our joint research a fruitful collaboration, Lady Rosamond. I cocked my head at Eglantine. Our joint research? Yes, it was joint research between our duchies, but she wasn't going to be involved, and my only role was to assist Klassenburg. I am unsure what you mean, I said. Is there something Klassenburg hopes to learn? I know nothing of their intentions. Moreover, Ehrenfest has no need to research the dedication ritual any further. We are performing these rituals only because the royal family and a greater duchy demanded our assistance. If there is a topic Lady Gentian wishes to research, that is news to me. Egotine didn't respond. She merely covered her mouth in shock, which confused me even more. There was no mission statement for those dedication rituals, nor had there been any meetings other than the one spent scheduling them. I was at a complete loss. Last year, I said, I was informed that joint research stays within the realms of students and does not require the permission of OBS. However, this collaboration began with a request from your OB and only came to be because you insisted on it. Not even the meetings about the rituals here involve students. Egotine looked at me with a start, but I was speaking the truth. Aside from Lady Gentian, whom we had graded during the fellowship gathering, I didn't know a single Klassenberg student. How can we be expected to carry out research when the schedule for the dedication rituals decided without us, I asked. We do not even know what they hope to discover. I didn't mind participating in the dedication ritual to help the students obtain more divine protections, spread my knowledge of religious ceremonies, and increase the royal family's mana capacity, but calling it joint research made no sense to me. There are many benefits to performing the dedication rituals, I said, so I wish Klassenberg the best with them. But be warned, though. While Ehrenfest will obey the demands of top-ranking duchies, this year, once I am a princess, this one-sided joint research of Klassenberg will end. To be frank, I consider it a tremendous inconvenience that I must waste my Earth Day carrying out a rote dedication ritual instead of dealing with more pressing matters. Just as Egotine had intervened to make this happen, I would intervene to stop it. There was no point in Ehrenfest getting involved when it meant putting a burden on Wilfried and Charlotte and taking valuable time away from the students working hard to secure good grades. Does it not benefit Ehrenfest to contribute thusly to the royal family? Egotine asked. Propping up Klassenberg is a fine way to prove your loyalty to Jürgenschmidt. Ehrenfest was a winning duchy now, so it was true that we needed to contribute to the country, but there was no obligation for us to help Klassenberg specifically. Plus, was my agreement to enter the royal family not enough? The last thing we needed was to be burdened even more. Lady Rosemine, we cannot hold the dedication rituals without Ehrenfest's support. We do not know anyone who could perform them. She placed a troubled hand on her cheek. If you consider it that great an inconvenience, then you should have informed me sooner. I met her gaze and shook my head. By the time I was told about the rituals, there had already been set in stone. At no point was I consulted, or how could I have informed you? Besides, the moment you intervened, they became a royal decree, which is not something Ehrenfest can refuse. The royal family's involvement meant this was no longer joint research between students. It was a peculiar arrangement to say the least, and not one I was going to play along with. If Klassenberg intends to repeat the dedication ritual next year, then you should study ours closely and record the process. Perhaps that could be your research theme for this year. Wilfried and Charlotte had successfully learned to perform the ritual, and I'd heard that Melkor and the Apprentice Blues had done excellently during the Harvest Festival. Klassenberg had an entire year to prepare themselves. As long as they were motivated, they could manage. Lady Egotine, please deliver a message to Ob Klassenberg for me. I said, if you dedicate some yourselves for half a year, you will be able to perform the ritual yourselves. Okay. Dang it, I don't want to stop! I gotta stop. I'm sorry. I'll see y'all next time.